As we explored earlier, these barriers transcend mere concrete. They are smart fortifications armed with cutting-edge sensors. Lithuania has pushed boundaries even further, equipping Belarusian border bridges with explosive devices, ready to detonate the instant enemy tanks roll into view. Can you imagine the roar of thunderous blasts echoing across frozen rivers? The acrid scent of smoke filling the air as steel collapses into rubble. Would Russia dare provoke such devastation, where one wrong move turns their armor into trapped prey in a lethal vice? Shocking, isn't it? The Baltic's Iron Curtain isn't just sealing borders. It's engineered to humiliate and obliterate aggressors on contact. Poland has encircled Kaliningrad's frontier with sleek electronic fences and deep anti-tank ditches, cutting off this Russian enclave like a forgotten island in a sea of hostility. Peering deeper into this all-encompassing siege, a stark reality unfolds for Moscow and Minsk. Dive into the intricate mechanics of these defenses. And what emerges isn't routine security. It's a blueprint for absolute warfare. Picture the tension. The chill of winter winds clawing at wire. The distant hum of patrols vibrating your bones. Why linger on the surface when the true terror lies in precision? The explosive bridges spanning Lithuania's edge become the first line of reckoning. Verified by Lithuanian military data. Metal frames beneath Belarus-bound crossings act as swift mounting pads for charges, ignited on command. In engineering jargon, this is countermobility. A devastating art. The aim: wreck the span. Strand foes on riverbanks. Channel them straight into artillery crosshairs. Into deadly kill zones sprouting fire and destruction. Feel the earth tremble. The taste of silt in the air as tanks bog down. Dreams of advancement crushed under targeted wrath. Lithuanian soldiers deepen irrigation ditches along the divide, transforming them into insurmountable anti-tank voids. Russian T-72s or T-90s, futile against these waterlogged chasms. Meanwhile, reforestation shrouds the view. Blinding surveillance drones. Sensory chaos heightening vulnerability. On Latvia's flank, a surveillance colossus rises. Cold, unyielding, pulsing with tech. Officials assert the completed 280-kilometer barrier curbs migrant waves, but halts Spetsnaz infiltrators. Saboteurs slipping through shadows. Interior Minister Ryards Kozlovsky hailed it as Europe's premier eastern shield. Marshy terrains yield floating patrol paths, allowing guards to tread treacherous ground. Boots sinking into mud. Sloshing echoes of vigilance. Yet, the ace up their sleeve. Anti-mobility parks. Dozens dot Lithuania and Latvia's hinterlands. Stockpiling tank impediments. Concrete slabs. Mines primed for instant deployment. Envision roads alive with machinery groans. Supply veins pulsating. Then silenced in hours. Aft Russian forces stir. Pathways fracture. Traps spring. Lifeblood of invasion severed. The ground feels different now. Uneven. Treacherous underfoot. As barriers descend like judgment. Rhetoric aside. Does this bristle of preparation signal the end of hesitation? Or just the chilling prelude? What twisted gambit awaits when engines finally roar? Prepare for revelations that shatter complacency. In the previous segment, nations like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Finland have stiffened their resolve, sealing borders with formidable barriers, explosives, and surveillance. They've embraced a forward defense strategy, eliminating gray zones on the frontier. Tallinn's threats of hybrid assaults, buoy removals, and border intrusions have pulled the trigger. Now it's clear, you're with us or against us. But what if I told you Poland's electric shield isn't just blocking Kaliningrad, it's humiliating Russia's naval might across the Baltic? Imagine the scent of salt air mingled with the distant hum of jets, drones patrolling unseen, turning a once puddling exploit into a cage for their mighty fleet. As tensions soar, Poland unveils a 199-kilometer high-tech wall locking down the Kaliningrad anchor of Russia's Baltic fleet. Cameras, seismic detectors, and thermal eyes watch around the clock. Does this cage Russia's ships in plain sight? It slaps back at Moscow's migrant weapon ploy, neutralizing their hybrid games with cold steel and silicon. Warsaw's technological bulwark laughs in the face of signals and borders gone fuzzy, one analyst notes, the eerie buzz of sensors piercing the fog. From Baltic waves to Polish plains, this unbroken chain churns soft earth into no man's land, fields echoing with the snap of automated alerts. Wait, Russia and Belarus now peer westward, not at inviting gates, but at gun muzzles leveled straight, spans rigged to shatter in an instant. What shadows lurk under their boots? It's a chilling pivot, not diplomacy, but a gauntlet thrown. Humiliating their swagger into retreat. Got shivers tracing that frontier? Stay vigilant, as the brutal echo builds. Russia's war sparked by Putin is gripping Russians in these border areas too. Traffic grinds to a halt, no movement allowed. The bridge stands shut, a permanent barrier against hybrid threats from the east. And this blockade hammers local economies, turning once thriving regions into ghost towns. Can you imagine the terror if hybrid wars erupt here? What if propaganda turns neighbors against each other overnight? Picture Daugavpils, a city haunted by Russian whispers from screens. That's the shocking underbelly of this iron curtain, disinformation slicing deeper than any tank. Regions like Alytus and Narva, once buzzing with cross-border trade, Russian tourists flooding in, and logistics chains humming smoothly, now echo with silence. No longer the vibrant hubs they were. The Baltics, bracing for Russia's and Belarus's threats to linger, are arming their people for disaster. Governments run drill after drill, blaring sirens to slice through the calm. They hand out 72-hour survival kits, packed with essentials for invasion chaos. In Lithuania, at least 150,000 civil defense manuals land at doorsteps, door after door, waking folks to the storm ahead. Russia's sly hybrid tactics? They're zeroing in on this weak spot, mercilessly. Russian-speaking minorities along the borders get hit hard by the Kremlin's propaganda blitz. Waves of lies and fake news surge through TikTok and Telegram, stirring hate against their own homes. Feel the hum of social media feeds poisoning minds? Smell the digital smoke from viral lies? In eastern Latvia's Daugavpils, a huge chunk of people still glues their eyes to Russian broadcasts, doubting the nation's defense spends. Skeptics roll their eyes at bunkers and barriers. This thrusts Baltic leaders into a two-front grind. Outside, they stack concrete walls to shield from Russian forces. Inside, they battle for minds and hearts against propaganda's insidious grasp. Flashback to my childhood in a border town. The sweet scent of fresh bread from Russian bakeries across the river, laughter mingling with shared languages under autumn leaves. Now, that warmth feels like a distant dream, replaced by barbed wire's cold bite. Evacuation drills in Vilnius spotlight their pushback against Russia's manufactured dangers. Just 30 kilometers from the Belarusian edge, the capital risks artillery hell. Simulations show evacuating hundreds of thousands through just 3 routes? A recipe for gridlock, crushing logistics. Who knew a mass flight could strangle NATO's lifelines? The Suwalki Gap chokes under civilian surges. So, Lithuania eyeballs busing the elderly and disabled West. But planners race to craft foolproof plans for when SHTF. Shelter in place? Vital for self-reliance amid the chaos. The Baltics tweak their blueprints, factoring every wild twist. What if Russia cuts communication lines next? How would hope hold in the shadows? Undetectable sabotage lurks, turning allies into enemies. Previously, evacuation challenges in Lithuania revealed bottlenecks at key routes, forcing authorities to seek new ways to keep supply chains flowing, emailing elderly and disabled citizens westward by bus, while developing reliable plans for worst-case evacuations. Imagine a mass civilian stampede clogging narrow passages into the Suwalki corridor, deafening cries of urgency echoing through dust-choked roads, the bitter taste of fear in the air as families clutch loved ones, dragging exhausted feet toward safety. Could a desperate exodus now derail vital military support, stranding NATO aid in a tangle of human traffic? And what if this frenzy isn't just chaotic, but a deliberate trap orchestrated by unseen foes? A panicked rush toward the Suwałki Gap might jam crucial supply lines, delaying NATO reinforcements in a heartbeat. That's why civilians must hunker down, learning self-reliance amid the shadows. Basically, the Baltics are rewriting evacuation scripts, accounting for every nightmarish twist. These ripples hit Russia and Belarus hard, turning their plans upside down. Picture it. Baltic borders slamming shut like iron jaws, snapping Russia's last European lifelines. Trains could grind to a halt, highways barricaded. Kaliningrad morphing into a stranded outpost, isolated and vulnerable. Belarus echoes this doom, ballooning into a garrison fortress, its economy leashed to Moscow, western exits choked by cages of barriers. The Minsk wing shrivels, stripped of autonomy as alliances crumble. Now, watchtowers cast eerie projectors into the night. Thermal cameras glowing coldly, borders that once pulsed with crossings now dead silent. This wall flips the script, a Baltic masterpiece reshaping NATO's game. Gone is the old gamble, hoping to counter after invasion. In its place, a doctrine of denial, erecting unbreachable foams, blocking Russian gains by sheer physics. Think of Lithuanian bridges rigged to erupt at dawn, a brutal handshake to Moscow. Enter if you dare, but you'll beg to retreat alive. This nullifies Putin's blitzkrieg dreams, snuffing out any swift conquest hopes. The Baltic rampart stands sentinel, engineering defeat before it starts. Yet, whispers of cunning countermeasures from the east threaten to unravel it all. What hidden moves lurk in Russia's playbook? Can they shatter this fortress, or will it stand as an eternal rebuke to aggression? Stay tuned, as we unearth the staggering fallout shaping Europe's fate. Can Russia really turn its own backyard into a death trap? Imagine the creak of steel underfoot on a bridge rigged to blow at any second, the sharp tang of gunmetal in the air, and the distant rumble of jets patrolling skies that once felt safe. But here's the twist that's humiliating Moscow: their vaunted backyard is now a snare, encircled by walls that laugh at their threats. In the last episode, we uncovered the lethal strategies along the Baltic borders, where explosive bridges and smart fences vow to Russia, "You can enter here, but you'll never leave alive." This clever defense strips away any hope of a swift victory for Putin's forces. What if the geography Russia calls home is actually a strategic noose, tightening with every NATO move? The geostrategic entry of Finland and Sweden flips the script, morphing the Baltic Sea into a NATO stronghold, poised to choke off Russia's St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad, two lifelines turned vulnerable ports. Close those land borders in the Baltic nations, and watch maritime siege complete the picture from the ground up. Kaliningrad? It's no fortress now. Stuck in the heart of NATO lands, it's a sitting target, supply veins slashed, defenseless and hostage to the alliance's will. Does this terrify you? Poland's buzzing electronic barriers buzz like angry hornets, chewing into Russia's intimidating posture. Lithuania's fortifications around the Suwałki corridor gnaw away at their bluster, turning Moscow's bully tactics into empty noise. Even the dreaded Iskander missiles, Moscow's ace against the Baltics, now stare down impenetrable air defenses and unyielding concrete. Russia's comeback? Frenzied and reckless. Estonian intelligence chiefs whisper it, intent to hit NATO stays low, but their long games grind on. Yet, the Baltic's spiky porcupine defense jolts Russia's math off kilter. Muddy in Ukraine's quicksand, can Moscow stomach the crushing weight of a Western front erupting too? Their burn the bridges choice shutters the Kremlin's shady playground for hybrid havoc. Crafting migrant storms or stirring unrest? Meet unflinching armies steeped in resolve. This chess masterstroke ignites Europe's wake-up call. Once called alarmist for crying wolf on Russia, the Baltics watch their paranoia morph into Europe's ironclad doctrine. Dare threaten one ally, and face every NATO inch defended, without mercy. But wait, the ultimate slap in Putin's face hides here. This fortress doesn't just block, it traps Russia's ambitions in their own turf, erasing quick conquest dreams forever. What shocking secret could shatter this standoff next? In the previous segment, we uncovered how the Baltic states, long dismissed as overcautious, have now galvanized Europe into a unified defense stance. Their warnings about Russian threats are no longer whispers, they've become NATO's rallying cry, where any aggression against one ally means the whole alliance stands firm on every inch of sovereign ground. Can the Kremlin's iron fist shatter this newfound unity, or will Europe's resolve turn their playground into a graveyard? Imagine the chill wind howling across Lithuania's border, carrying the acrid scent of fresh concrete and steel, as Germany's battalion digs in permanently an unyielding force that no propaganda can pry loose. The crunch of boots on gravel echoes like a defiant heartbeat, steady and relentless. This isn't just troops in the field, it's America's enduring shadows, stretching a transatlantic shield that buries Putin's divide-and-conquer fantasies in the dirt. Every wire tangled in barbed fury, every trench carved into the earth like scars of stubborn resilience, hammers home a bitter irony. Russia ignited the fire to fracture NATO, but instead, they've forged it into a militaristic fortress, unbreakable and vigilant. The smell of gun oil and earth mingles with the roar of engines, a symphony of readiness that mocks the Kremlin's fading echoes. For Belarus, Lukashenko's regime, it's a vice tightening with merciless precision. Economic lifelines to Europe snapped shut like trapdoors, leaving Minsk gasping in isolation. Grain rots in warehouses, factories hum to a standstill. Their once bustling halls now silent tombs filled with the stench of decay. Can they survive this siege, or is collapse the only horizon? This defense barrier rewires power maps, shackling both Moscow and Minsk, turning boundless wilds into inescapable cages. Forests whisper of freedom lost, rivers reflect steel walls, and fields hum with sensors that detect every trespass like a predator's keen senses. Borders aren't mere sketches on paper, they're towering fortresses, reinforced by concrete dragons and explosive veils. Digging those trenches into their soil, the Baltics scream a global truth: real peace demands arming against oblivion. Explosives coiled under bridges aren't weapons, they're dire warnings etched in dynamite: this is not yours. Here, you meet your doom. The deceptive calm of accords crumbles into armed reality, a new iron curtain descending, not from tyrants, but from peoples who'll incinerate everything for liberty. Collisions with this bastion won't yield to force, they'll face an alliance's unbreakable spirit, forged in the furnace of fear. What fate awaits those who charge this wall, and how far will Russia escalate to tear it down? Those stories unfold next, watching the Kremlin's next provocative gambit unfold against this impassable shield. In the shadow of towering fortifications, Baltic nations turned their borders into unyielding battlegrounds, weaving steel and explosives into a new iron curtain. Could these defenses shatter Putin's ambitions, or will Russia lash out in reckless fury? Imagine the eerie hum of surveillance drones slicing through the chill air, the sharp crack of digging trenches echoing like war drums, the gritty feel of concrete dragons' teeth underfoot, defying an empire's wrath. What if I told you these barriers aren't just walls, but whispers of impending doom for Moscow? With hundreds of tank barrels gleaming menacingly and fighter jets roaring overhead, ominous patrols creep over training grounds for tens of thousands of soldiers. Constant strafe by bomber and reconnaissance aircraft paints the skies in dread. This eerie tableau unfolds along the Baltic region and the Russia-Belarus frontier, where crisis escalates into daily dread. Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have fortified their frontiers with historic military might, sealing gateways against doom. But oh, the horrors lurking underground surpass the visible threats. Bridges arching toward Russian and Belarusian lands now pulse with rigged cables, not pathways for unity, but triggers for obliteration. Fields bristle with concrete dragons' teeth, while roads vanish into anti-tank ditches and mine-strewn death traps. Gone is the semblance of a diplomatic gateway facing Moscow's glare. Instead, a death zone shimmers, touch it, and annihilation erupts. This iron curtain, snaking from the frozen Arctic to Poland's vast plains on Russia's western edge, morphs from mere boundary. Did Russian boots tease the edge of Europe's weakening lines, ready to crush freedom at any moment? As the Baltics unveil their silent weapon, anti-mobility parks stashed with barriers to crush invaders in hours, tensions spike beyond borders. Floating walkways rise in treacherous marshes, letting guards glide over mud that once spelled doom for any foe. But the Pearl? Vast storerooms bursting with tank traps and mines, poised to erase paths the second Moscow stirs. Lithuania and Latvia craft dozens of hidden zones mere yards from the frontier, packed with endless concrete cubes, tank ditches, and lethal mines. These gears await a flip, to unleash devastation on highways and turn Earth to impasse. Imagine the thunder, Russian tanks roaring forth, only to meet obliterations in minutes, not miles. Finland's stern stand blazes the trail. President Alexander Stubb urged readiness, a rallying cry echoing as an ironclad command. Helsinki fortifies shelters that defy artillery roars and missile screams, shielding citizens in blast-proof havens. A 260-kilometer steel serpent coils along the southeast edge, a reminder that old war's defense is reborn, fiercer than ever. Ukraine's brutal battle scarred their vision. The Baltics, awakened, vow to strangle aggression at the first inch. No more retreating depths, a forward defense creed rises, halting invaders at barbed lines, denying a single foothold. Tanks tremble, armored beasts balk, as borders morph into unbreakable chains. Narva, that fragile jewel in northeastern Estonia, pulses as the raw nerve in this shield. Its teeth. Steel gates slam shut, unyielding. NATO drills label it the Narva Next Scenario, Russia's prime target. Bloomberg warns, Narva River bridges barred by jagged dragon's teeth and bolted gates, their arches silent guardians. In NATO drills, this spot whispers Narva Next, Russia's plotted prize, a hybrid siege brewing. Estonia deploys 600 bunkers along the brink, concrete bulwarks against little green men slinking through shadows. Incursions by Russian guards, buoys yanked from river mists, rupture Tallinn's air with wails of alarm. No hazy twilight remains, the divide splits stark, you side with light, or lurk in darkness. What if tomorrow's dawn unmasks a masquerade, pulling nations into an abyss that devours without warning? Imagine facing a barrier so deadly, it could erase an entire nation's ambitions in an instant. What if Russia's western front is now a ticking trap, rigged to crumble under the weight of its own aggression? This shocking reality unfolds in the Baltic region, where historic tensions have birthed fortifications that echo the cold chill of winter winds whistling through barbed wire, the gritty crunch of gravel under patrolled boots, and the distant hum of aerial vigilance. As crisis escalates, what once seemed impossible becomes daily life. Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia sealing borders with unprecedented military might. Previously, we've uncovered how Baltic nations are arming their frontiers against invasion, from underwater munitions to aerial threats capable of territorial devastation. Now, delve into the hidden underworld of defense. The bridges no longer invite passage, but promise obliteration with wires poised for detonation. Fields bristle with concrete spikes like dragon claws, roads gouged into treacherous pits laced with lethal surprises. Diplomatically, Moscow's gateways vanish into explosive voids, uncrossable zones signaling a ruthless brink. What if a single misstep ignited a cascade of destruction, humiliating an empire's thunderous advance into oblivion? Picture the Narva crossing in Estonia, slammed shut with unyielding concrete fangs and coiled barbs, its friendship bridge severed for vehicles amid silent vigilance. Latvia's colossal 280-kilometer fence along Russia and extra 145-kilometer barrier against Belarus aren't mere walls, they pulse with intelligence via advanced sensors, sensing whispers of movement in the fog-shrouded dawn. Lithuania escalates dread, bridging Belarus crossings with instant explosive charges. Enemy armor's rumble could mean seconds to shattering doom, trapping invaders in muddy chasms. Previously, we've seen barriers evolve into smart traps bristling with sensors and spikes. Unexpectedly, these fortifications twist into war machines aimed not at defense alone, but a doctrine of annihilation, exploding links that strand armored beasts for pre-sighted kill zones. Why gamble on retreat when forward lines paralyze at the brink, embodying Finland's stern call for unyielding readiness? Beneath the surface, technical prowess reveals explosive beds under Lithuanian spans, ready to mount charges and unleash havoc. Canals deepen into tank-thwarting trenches, forests cloak observation, blinding foes in verdant shadows. Twist, what if this isn't just halt, but entrapment drawing armies into artillery crossfires? Previously, explosive engineering on Lithuanian frontiers hints at a war doctrine fixated on border lockdown, turning natural terrains into impassable nightmares. Latvia's 280-kilometer surveillance fortress now blooms with anti-mobility hubs, stockpiling concrete bunkers and mines behind lines. Patrols glide on floating planks through marshy mires, their footing precarious on rippling waters, smells of damp earth and machinery oil hanging heavy. Shocking turn, as Russia probes with provocations like buoy removals on the Narva, alarm ignites, Estonia's 600 shelters rise as shields against hybrid incursions, no gray zones remain, allegiance is demanded. Previously, Latvia's tech-laden fence transforms marshes into guarded realms, while anti-mobility parks store devastation in wait. Estonia counters Narva's vulnerabilities with concrete bastions, codified in NATO drills as prime targets. Poland's electronic veil over Kaliningrad isolates Russia's fleet base, its 199-kilometer stretch alive with 24/7 eyes, cameras whispering secrets, seismic tremors felt in the soil, thermal glows piercing night. Rhetorical sting, is this barrier neutralizing migration as weapon tactics, or humiliating Moscow's hybrid schemes into irrelevance? Beyond military glare, sociological scars emerge, Narva's trade veins wither, economies hemorrhage as bridges bar passage. Previously, Poland's censor-swathed barrier neuters Kaliningrad's threats, echoing a seamless deathwatch from sea to border. Ripples invade daily life, shattering identities in border towns like Narva, once vibrant hubs, now isolated enclaves where war's shadow chokes vitality. Putin's turmoil exacerbates woes for Russian minorities, propaganda waves via digital tides sowing doubt. Drills erupt, manuals handed out like lifelines, Vilna's simulations exposing evacuation bottlenecks. Unpublished twist, civilians learn self-sufficiency under siege, hemming NATO aid, as governments wage internal battles, walls outward, persuasion inward, to unite against disinformation's venom. Did Russian boots tease the edge of Europe's weakening lines, ready to crush freedom at any moment? As the Baltics unveil their silent weapon, anti-mobility parks stashed with barriers to crush invaders in hours, tensions spike beyond borders. Floating walkways rise in treacherous marshes, letting guards glide over mud that once spelled doom for any foe. But the Pearl? Vast storerooms bursting with tank traps and mines, poised to erase paths the second Moscow stirs. Lithuania and Latvia craft dozens of hidden zones mere yards from the frontier, packed with endless concrete cubes, tank ditches, and lethal mines. These gears await a flip, to unleash devastation on highways and turn Earth to impasse. Imagine the thunder, Russian tanks roaring forth, only to meet obliterations in minutes, not Vanderstub urged, be more Finnish. Mean more prepared. His words ignited the Baltics like a rallying cry. Helsinki erects bunkers tough enough against artillery blasts and rocket showers. They seal a 260-kilometer southeastern barrier, a sheer fortress line. This mirrors defense unseen since World War II's darkest trenches. The Baltic states absorbed Ukraine's brutal lesson. The whole region now grasps one truth: halt Russia at the border's first inch. Clash its tanks and vehicles there, before they stir an inch. Ditch old defense in depth. Embrace forward defense. Barrier them out cold. Narva, Estonia's northeastern flashpoint, epitomizes this tense standoff. Bloomberg reveals bridges over the Narva River spiked with dragon's teeth. Steel gates slammed shut, unyielding. NATO drills label it the Narva next scenario, Russia's prime target. Bloomberg warns, Narva River bridges barred by jagged dragon's teeth and bolted gates, their arches silent guardians. In NATO drills, this spot whispers Russian guards incursions and buoy removals from the Narva River. They rattle Tallinn's nerves. The border's gray haze vanishes. No more ambiguity. With us, or against us. Alarm bells screech like incoming shells, the air thick with fear's bitter tang. Tension peaks as provocations escalate. What unseen offensive lurks next for Narva, humming like a trapped beast ready to explode? Will Tallinn's walls hold against the storm?